strategy and how you are going to execute that strategic action plan and what the outcomes of those initiatives are, and you would like to make some timely adjustment by monitoring the outcomes. A lot of times you would like to align these strategies with your overall business goals, and you would like to monitor how you are performing. We all have a lot of processes and workflows within Maximo, so you would like to see how well they are performing, or are there any bottlenecks in the process, for example, how the life cycle of the work order goes. Are there people taking a lot of time to approve it, or there is a lot of work orders that are not being closed, or there is a lot of work orders that are not being addressed at all. So there is a lot of things that can be identified with the help of data analysis. From a performance management standpoint, you will know what are your leading indicators, what are lagging indicators, the things that you would like to focus on, and the actions that you would like to take, so that eventually you get better reliability and better control on your costs. In cases where you have multiple sites, multiple plants, or across departments, you could do benchmarking, and more so importantly is to learn from other people that those best practices can be applied to some other areas in the organization. Many a times the reports and KPIs and the targets, this can be really used to drive people's behavior, drive their actions, and help communicate what the overall business goals are. And of course, it's the same thing can be used to monitor the performance of the individuals, provide them outliers, alerts, and give them enough input so that you see some actions that will lead to right behavior. Then at a high level, you want decisions to be made more on facts rather than just sheer gut feeling or the judgment that people may have. And the quality of the decisions will be improved, and that's really how Maximo can help maintenance and reliability professionals. And overall, at the end of the day, we all want financial performance while balancing all the health and validation or other regulatory risks that you might have, or safety, health, or environmental related risks. So net, assets are there for a purpose, and we need to realize value out of these assets. It could be in the form of throughput or productivity, financials. You want to do all the things in certain budgets, want to make sure the quality of the output or the service of the output, service quality is as per your internal customers' expectations, and then we also want to make sure our systems and processes and people are empowered to make sure the organization's overall preparedness and maturity is improved. So we have seen various companies go through various maturity levels, and by and large, a lot of times people realize that these data can be used, but they fail to actually rely on it, or they don't use data as much. And the part of the reason is there's a lack of knowledge on some of the cases how data can help drive business. Some of these projects are driven by IT, and IT have limited knowledge of maintenance and reliability, or for example, RCM principles or TPM principles, or any other initiative that you might have. Some CMMS systems are not fully matured. They don't collect sometimes right data, so the data quality is suspect in terms of accuracy, consistency, completeness, integrity, all of that. And so the analysis that you do get out of that type of data is always suspect, and it's not as trustworthy. So many times companies struggle with this basic challenge with poor quality, giving poor data analysis, and hence there is a less adoption of analytics in maintenance and reliability. For a large company, sometimes there is no standard taxonomy. The measurements are not standardized, so that leads to multiple assets with a similar name, or asset classes are not well defined, the hierarchies are not deep enough, or sometimes the work is charged to a functional location, physical location, then sometimes to asset. So some of these discrepancies lead to maybe it can lead to bad decisions that you make out of the reports that you might get. And then, of course, a lot of times budget is a constraint. You may have some other projects in which you might allocate your budget rather than on analysis. Leadership is also one of the big factor. If leadership insists that most of the decisions should be made based on data analysis, the adoption can be much faster and much wider within the organization. So before I go further, Nilesh, I have second question, please.
Yeah. Please rate the quality of your asset-related data within Maximo in terms of accuracy, consistency, and completeness. Please select one: very good, good, poor, or very poor. All right. So Sunil, we have 43% have good data, 29% have poor data, and 29% have very good data.
Great. So majority of you believe you have good data, so that's a good starting point. Good data will lead into good quality analysis, so obviously. But as we move forward, and some companies, they are in the various stages of evolution. So, but sometimes, we also it'll be worth your while to actually assess your quality of the data. So whatever the quality that you might have, the analysis quality will improve. So this is just to show over a period of time you can mature and really drive your business of maintenance and reliability based on data that is analytics-driven maintenance and reliability, and will give you a lot more opportunities for improvement. So just on the same thought here, the type of analysis that you will do will also evolve in the type of questions that you would be able to answer as you evolve with your analytics maturity. So in the beginning, you might be just doing standard reports, what happened, and ad hoc reporting on some of the investigative type of reporting you might do. But as you go further, you will do more predictive type of reporting where you can actually forecast certain events, forecast certain failures, forecast certain your spare parts stockout risks, those types of things. And then eventually you want some of this data to actually drive some of the decisions as well. But that's part of so every organization is in various stage of this maturity curve. Same thing here, but it's a little bit different presentation here. As you go along in this journey, as you will start using more data analysis techniques, you will start asking more questions, and hopefully you will get a lot more learnings out of your practices and the data that you capture, and hopefully you'll reach to a level where you can optimize your maintenance and reliability operations. So let's look at some of the problems that you can actually solve in terms of with the help of data analysis that you cannot do just directly in the Maximo transaction system. So if you really want to find out from a performance standpoint, give me all the assets or the bad actors which are underperforming assets. And you can do it with the help of whether you rank it based on the utilization, availability, reliability, cost, time to repair, or time between failure, however, whatever the parameters that you might do, or you might do it with the multiple parameters as well. If you make any strategic changes in your management and for reliability and maintenance, and you want to see whether that's really driving the actual outcome. In this case, let's say you want to just reduce your mean time between failure and at the same time monitor the cost. So if you make any strategic changes, you can actually look at how it is trending. So that type of analysis only, data analysis can actually help you understand whether the changes actually that you are bringing about is really getting you the output that you expect. Sometimes you would like to make decisions on repair versus replace. How would you decide on at what point in time you would like to retire a particular asset, or you will do run to fail? So some of these decisions can be based on, of course, the judgment and the engineering knowledge. You can also take help of the data analysis techniques. Same thing is true in work management. You want to know how much work you're doing proactively versus reactively, how much work is planned versus how much work is unplanned, what is the sheer volume of the work, what are the problem work orders, areas where you started the work, did not get finished, and various things, delays, cancel, because all of these things lead to cost overruns as far as work orders are concerned. And basic level of sophistication is lost when our efficiencies are lost when we don't plan or schedule things well. Even when you have planning and scheduling functions in place, you want to know how planners are doing well or how schedulers are doing. So you can actually measure schedule compliance. You can measure your planning compliance, your effectiveness of planning function. So there are many KPIs that can help you understand your planning and scheduling function as such. And just to do that function also, you require certain basic informations to make sure that you have everything that you need to plan well and schedule. So let's look at a PM program just as an example. So from a PM program or PDM program perspective, you want to understand how much is your PM workload, you want to do planning of the PM, then compliance, and then link it with some failure analysis and reliability. So you want to make sure your PMs are effective, and maybe you would like to rationalize at the end of that cycle. So this is just one example where you can actually plot it between your PM dedication on critical assets and the failures on those assets. So you can actually graphically look at it that the areas which are pointed here where there is inappropriate dedication of PM, and maybe that's why it is leading to failures. And in this example, you want to see how much particular assets labor is actually used on these assets, and how much is on the PM, and how much is on the on corrective work or reactive work. And this can lead you to understand where you are not putting your PM efforts. Another example is how crew is actually spending their time. So this can actually allow you to know, and in the month of September there is not much work, and all the other months you had too much work. So maybe there is a shutdown or some other things are not planned on that month, or you can actually spread the work evenly. Same thing is true for areas where you want to make sure the craft is actually spending some of their time on the PM activities and not on the reactive activities or the corrective activities. Some of these type of data analysis can actually help you understand where you need to focus as far as improvements are concerned. Some other issues related to cost management. You would like to understand where you're spending your money, how well your budgets are planned, and how well you are managing your budgets. And you can do it by various means. Generally, cost is a very simplistic in the maintenance, because there are essentially four big elements of the cost related to maintenance, labor, inventory, services, and tools, or special tools or special services that you might get. So it will help you where if you're doing regular PMs and then you would like to see some PMs, the same PM on different assets are taking different level of efforts or level of cost. And you can identify those, and that can lead into finding whether you need training, you need more help from experts or things like that. And you can actually use all these cost control for analyzing budget versus actual spend. So most of the time when we talk about cost, we talk about mostly what the cost is, but I think the focus should be on what drives cost. Understand the root cause of cost drivers, and from a maintenance reliability perspective, that can give you a lot of insight on what areas you could improve upon. From a reliability standpoint, you can understand, you can actually estimate what the reliability will be based on certain regression models. You can use Weibull analysis. You can use some other techniques which will help you predict certain level of predict your reliability of your assets and what the risk of failures is, so that you can mitigate it effectively. If you're running an RCM or any other condition-based monitoring or a PDM programs, you can actually look at their effectiveness by monitoring all the costs, all the efforts that you're putting in, and really understand whether that's driving you any business benefits or not. Same thing from a failure analysis, you can identify what are your failure causes that are actually giving you consistent problems. It could, and you can actually in Maximo, you can actually go through problem cause remedy and look at the causes that are actually leading to these failures. We can also actually map it with the PM, whether there is a PM compliance has any implication on the failure itself. Then you also want to find equipment that have unusual number of failures. So if you have 500 pumps and only certain 5 pumps are giving you more problems than others, then those types of exception and outliers can be actually found out. In spares, there are a lot of things that can be done, understanding slow-moving or non-moving items, your ABC analysis, the cost of when you budget for all the spares, you can actually do some rationalization, remove obsolete inventory, and generally, if you want to tie your spare parts stock out risk to actual reliability goals, you can do some Poisson distribution or some other types of distribution techniques that will allow you to link your stock out risk with your reliability risk as reliability goals. And then in general, you can actually forecast certain demand for certain parts, come up with EOQ, reorder point, min-max levels. All of those basic things can be calculated with the help of data analysis. So Maximo does a lot of things and a lot of different functions, and it does very well with capturing most of the data. But by default, it provides certain tools. And some of the things it cannot do or doesn't do, and those are the gaps that we see. As you go higher up, people want more scorecard, dashboard. Middle management probably looks at metrics and looks at some ad hoc reporting, and people at reliability role may look at more statistical analysis along with all these other scorecards or metrics that they may define for their goals. And at the shop floor, you want people to probably have certain type of performance management metrics that will encourage them or kind of identify their limitations and provide all the operational reports so that they can perform their job well. So before I go any further, Neil, I have a third question, please.
Sure. What reporting or data analysis tool do you primarily use for your Maximo? Select one or more: BERT, Cognos, Crystal, MSRS, or other. All right. So here the results. 42% majority of them use Crystal VO, and 25% use other reporting tool, whereas 17% use BERT and 8% use Cognos and MSRS.
Okay, all right. So we have lots of different tools. So let's look at some of the options for Maximo data analysis out of the box, what IBM provides. And if you really see, this is a slide from their documentation, but what is essentially also highlighting what are the different areas that we have opportunity to use data analysis. At a very high level, strategic reporting, they provide some basic KPIs, some basic reporting, but obviously it's not as good as it could be or it should be. There is a basic ad hoc reporting in terms of QBR, and you can actually create report object structure, and along with QBR will give you some basic ad hoc reporting capabilities. Operational reports, I think BERT, if out of the box in Maximo 7 there is BERT, in 6 there is Actuate. And most of the reports were really originally designed, or even 150 plus reports that is provided by Maximo is really more on the operational side. Very few are on these others for strategic reporting. It provides KPIs where you can actually configure it at the start center level with the help of KPI manager. But again, those are that has its own limitation because it's just the way it is presented. It's not as friendly as you will see it in any other reporting tool. It also provides you ability to export based on application export, or you can actually export the result set that you get out of BERT or any other report that you might run within Maximo. And then, of course, in the end, they allow you to download all the data that you can then put it into Excel, and then from there you can actually do reporting. So this is really the basic high level, but if you really want to do advanced reporting, there are limitations, and each one of these have different limitations. Obviously, folks have different tools that they're using. Crystal Business Objects will have certain functionality, but most of the reporting tools by and large can do a lot of different things, and it just needs to be leveraged correctly. So before I go further, Neil, I have a fourth question, please.
If you are not currently on Maximo version 7, when do you plan to upgrade to version 7X? It's 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, or 12 to 24 months? All right, so 50% say 6 to 12 months they'll plan to go to version 7, 38% will plan in 0 to 6 months, and 13% after a year.
Okay, all right, so basically when in version 7 we have a lot more options in terms of what the slide that you see here is really for version 7, and people moving from 6 to 7. And when you move from Actuate to BERT or any other tool that you might choose, whether it's Crystal or Microsoft Reporting Services, there are some basic advantages and disadvantages. But certainly from 6 to 7, you have a lot more options. And just to look at what the options are, there is a embedded tool is obviously going to be BERT, which is an Eclipse Foundation open source tool. And then with direct integration, there's a difference between embedded and direct integration. What it really means is embedded comes with the Maximo. In direct integration, you have to configure this Cognos 8. and then now Cognos 10 is also supported. Indirect integration is also done for Tivoli under Maximo comes under Tivoli brand, and there is a Tivoli common reporting framework, and for which Cognos can be configured. And you can also integrate various tools, like majority of the attendees are using Crystal or other than BERT. If they are using other tools, it can actually integrated within Maximo, and you can drive or call a report from Maximo. And there are advantages and disadvantages of all that. And of course, you can link it the Maximo database with, because you can directly access Maximo database. Unlike some other system, you can do a lot of things directly from database to database level as well. So let's look at some BERT and Cognos comparison. And I think most of you use Crystal, so I'll just highlight some of the Crystal related issues also. When in Maximo, you can actually save a query, or you can create a subset, and when you run a BERT report, it will automatically pick up that subset. So if you have shortlisted some work orders related to particular months or particular site, and you run a work order list report, it will automatically pick it up. So that's the advantages of a embedded system. If you want to do that in Crystal, or sorry, if you want to run that same report as a Crystal report, some of that functionality may not be available because it doesn't pass these query conditions to the report itself. But there's a lot of integration, so you can actually do all the parameters page can actually look at everything that Maximo application provides, so that's controlled by Maximo, and then you just pass these parameters to the report. So there could be a lot of integration possibilities for BERT and Cognos, but the way Cognos and BERT are, it's considered as two separate options, and obviously BERT is embedded, so it has all the functionality. It's a Java-based tool, so and Maximo is built in Java, so there's a lot of synergistic integration being done. So most of the things that are feasible in BERT is also possible in Cognos. So these are some of the examples that I wanted to show you, but most of you use some other tools, so I'll just move forward. This one-click report printing can be done from BERT, which may not be feasible from Cognos unless you do a lot of integration programming. And you can launch some other tools or actions through Cognos as well. Most of these basic functionalities similar for BERT or Cognos, except UI is a little bit different. That if you are doing Cognos reporting outside, certain things will be a little bit different than BERT. The interesting feature of Maximo is probably the QBR, because that allows you or empowers the power users to do some of their own reporting. And the QBR is nothing but a version of BERT enabled within Maximo, so you can actually create a report object structures by which it will allow you to select certain fields and certain values, and that you can drag and drop into a report, and that report can be scheduled, or all the other functions that you might have for a standard report can also be applicable to this QBR ad hoc report. And then eventually this report, if this becomes something that you might like to use as a base report and do more full-fledged custom report, you can actually use that. So QBR can be a good starting tool to kind of understand what kind of data you might need. Cognos also provides some ad hoc reporting capabilities. When Cognos is integrated, it is also actually most of the metadata is also integrated in the framework manager. So when we create a report object structure, it also creates similar structures in the framework manager. So you can actually use Cognos Query Studio to really design a report using this. So what you see it in the QBR, some of it will be also can be done in the Cognos Query Studio. QBR doesn't have any graphs or the calculations are a little cumbersome. You can do it, but it's not very friendly. So some of these areas Cognos will be a lot more user friendly. So let's look at the report object structure. I think that was a good addition in version 7. What it really allows is if you want to limit the end users to go and try to pull data from various objects within Maximo, then that can be very taxing on the performance of the Maximo application itself and the database. So the idea here was to somehow create a limited set of data elements and define them in these report object structures, so the end users can actually use only this, and you can actually control the access and things like that, which will allow the end users to quickly drag and drop and get whatever they are looking for. And that same thing is then extended at the Cognos framework manager also. So that this really addresses some of the basic ad hoc reporting needs of the end users. So now let's look at why we need good reporting. Most of the companies have some vision goals on the maintenance reliability. They may have some initiatives associated to implement these to achieve these goals, and they may have some activities that they may plan, and they would like to measure them, the output also. So just to put it in a hierarchical perspective, let's take an example. The goal is high-level maintenance, reliability, and you want to reduce your MTTR. You want to extend your MTBF. And so you might look at different actions that you might have your people take. So in this case, you can monitor all these different types of KPIs. So ultimately, you get very high reliability. So we have assets, and this is an example in one company. They just focused on these 4 broad areas: increase throughput, reduce cost, mitigate your regulation risk or safety, health, environmental risk, and improve your product quality, the output quality or the service quality based on your assets. And they just focus on these basic KPIs. So each company may have different ways of managing their business, and as you become more sophisticated, you may look at more in-depth KPIs. So this is another example where they just focus most of their reporting based on the business goals that they were trying to drive to. And so there are some strategic KPIs and then operational KPIs. So different companies, based on different objectives, may come up with different areas to focus on and monitor the KPIs that they believe will help their business. Nilesh, I have a
Sure.
last question, please.
Do you have a separate Maximo reporting database or data warehouse? All right, so 60% have yes and 40% have no.
All right. So many companies, because Maximo data set is getting bigger, so it has an implication on the performance of Maximo applications. So a lot of companies have looked at building a separate data warehouse or data. So before I go, I would like to share some of the examples of the reports that that we all can look at. So I just for the purposes of this presentation, I kind of divided this into multiple areas. So if I look at work management, so within work management you might have work identification or planning, scheduling, execution, and these are different. And some of the reports are already there, but what challenges we have seen is the way the data is presented. So in this example, this particular company was trying to, they had external employee, internal employee, and looking at different sites. They wanted to see a manufacturing site versus R&D sites, and look at what the crew weeks backlog is. So this particular report is this is the business objects dashboard, but similar thing can be built in other tools as well. So here they could actually look at past due, current, and then crew weeks, actual crew weeks, and then they had some threshold here. If it is less than 4.3 or between greater than 5, they would like to do to highlight it as red. So based on each site, you can actually look at the actual crew ID and look at how it is trending. So if your backlog is increasing, then maybe you will have to think about some new resources that you may have to hire. So some of these things can be highlighted with the help of how you actually look at these trend results. Again, this is another business objects report where they are looking at crew week backlog trend, past due, and then look at by month, and then look at how within the month how they are doing by site or by crew week, crew itself. And then you can really make it interactive. You can click on this and go to the actual work orders details if you really want to see it for that particular group of work orders. From a general management, work order management perspective, this is another example where they would like to see how in the system at any point in time, as of a date, look at particular site or particular owner group or department, however you are organized. They would like to see how many priority work orders you have and how many total estimated hours are on that and how many work orders are without estimated. So this is a problem area where there is just a lot of work orders are being approved, but there is no estimated estimates on that. So here it's ready to be scheduled or it's in progress, but the hours are not there, or there are a lot of work orders which are aging, and one can actually drill down to the list of all these work orders and look at what is behind this number. Let's look at some other example where you will more interactive report where you want to see how much is the corrective work at different stages, and you can actually trend it how they were in a particular month. You can actually look at different work statuses and understand what was the estimated versus actual labor requirement was. If you have contractors, you are looking at how much is their pending work, and you can do it by, obviously you can do this by internal also, but here you can actually look at various trends of your requirements. Let's look at some other examples here where you would like to, let's look at the failure analysis. You would like to see failures by different failure codes, see the downtime, or look at the work order count, or look at the cost, and identify which failure codes, or you could do the same for problem code or a cause as well, same type of analysis where you would identify what is causing your majority of failures. You can also do failure, you can actually predict certain if you're doing root cause analysis of how much time people are spending, let's take this as an example. 100 hours are spent on this particular piece of equipment on these type of problem codes, and actually kind of build this, where are we spending these 100 hours? Or in this same example, you could actually look at cost as well as number of work orders. So this will kind of give you a sense of where we are investing our time and what are our opportunities for improvement. You can actually look at certain failure. You can predict the availability of the asset, or you can actually look at what are the outliers. So if you have some certain limits, you could actually focus on areas that you can improve upon. So let's look at some basic other performance management related areas, because we have only limited time here. So if you want to look at details, or you are looking plant managers level dashboard, you can combine data from some other production or some other system and show the asset availability versus production targets or quality goals or cost. So you can actually combine data from a variety of sources and show them the overall maintenance trend. So here in this example, we are looking at all the reliability related KPIs. We are also looking at the way we are managing our management related KPIs, and then PM effectiveness. So depending on what the this kind of a dashboard at a higher level can really give you a sense of how well your maintenance and reliability program is running. I think I'm running out of time. Neil, are there any questions that you would like to open it
there
for?
are a couple of questions, Sunil, but as we are running out of time, we will reply those answers to them on mail. Thank you very much for such a nice presentation. I hope the audience enjoyed this presentation. It was informative, and we hope to see you at Pulse. Please do visit our booth number E702. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you. Thank you.